Good afternoon. We are the University of Alberta. My name is Bree, and I'm here with my colleagues Jasmine, Michelle, and Owen. Now, I'm very lucky to own my dream car. It may not be a Porsche. It is a 2009 Beetle convertible Volkswagen, luckily in the Porsche family still. And I love my little car. Except every few months, I still get a twinge of sadness and regret because I think about how I got scammed when I first bought that car. It's been 2 years, and I still think about that. And that's what happened to Paul in the Porsche Hong Kong dealership. So that brings us to the question of how can one ensure the customer experience in Porsche dealerships consistently go above and beyond? To take a look at this question, we've brought up 3 main criteria. So clear, honest, and transparent communication, creating a memorable experience, and developing high customer loyalty. All this will bring us to the recommendation of driving tech, which is using technology to revamp and optimize the current guest experience. The impact will be moving Porsche to 750 in SSI into the top 5 in the dealership attitude survey, and overall moving Porsche to one of the top brands for customer satisfaction.
So Porsche is already a very strong brand, but its lack of internal communication is tarnishing the customer experience. When identifying its strengths, we noticed that they do have a strong brand presence with brand recognition, and they were the highest in the APEAL ranking. One of its weaknesses, as I mentioned earlier, though, is its lack of internal and external communication. An opportunity that we did identify, though, is that there's a trend towards automotive vehicles, so we do expect a boom in the sales of the Taycan. A threat that Porsche may face is because global standards in customer service is rising, there is a threat that a mistake could lead to negative customer service reviews.
Looking at the market, we have a concern in a highly competitive Hong Kong car market. Porsche title as top customer service is at risk. Looking in the Hong Kong car market, it actually has quite some opportunities for Porsche to capture more sales. But how can they do so? With our research, we see that 80% of customers think that the experience and services they receive is as important as the good that they are purchasing. So that's why being a top customer service is so important. We understand that Porsche does have a lot of achievements in that area, but we think with this highly competitive car market, for example, the SSI scores between 2nd and 6th place range from 736 to 732. This shows that it is highly competitive, and any changes with the score can bring you either to the heaven or to the hell. So we strongly recommend that you have to improve in your SSI and DAS standings to stand out from the crowd and achieve the most popular car brands in Hong Kong.
Now, after taking a look at a macro analysis, we'd like to move into more of a micro analysis, specifically a pain point analysis of the experiences in the Porsche dealership. What we found is that Porsche overpromised and underdelivered, leading to an abundance of pain points. Paul's experience started with a pain point and ended with a pain point, and over 73% of his interactions with Porsche were pain points. This leads to an overall very negative experience, and one that Porsche does not want to replicate. What I do want to point out is that Paul did have a positive experience, however. He really did appreciate that he had to sign the amendment forms in person because the security and seriousness of the forms, as well as the transparency of being there to sign it in person, was very important to him.
So what could be done to ensure that these 73% of pain points don't happen again? And how can we ensure the customer experience goes above and beyond? Well, we came up with 3 different alternatives to implement to help mitigate these problems. So the first alternative was an improvement of the human resources. This would be done by establishing stricter rules, following documentation. It would have employee training regularly every quarter, and it would have intermediate employee evaluations where we go in and gauge how well the employees are doing. The next idea is driving tech, and this would use modern technology such as a VR simulation machine and blockchain to help improve and create a new, unique customer experience. And on top of this, it would also have a plan to address human resource issues. Lastly, was the implementation of a new CRM system. And this would be a system to track the internal activities and help have a better system for contacting and communicating with the customers. We paired all these three alternatives up in an evaluation matrix based off the criteria mentioned earlier to see what would be the best fit for the company. Starting with the communication, this is where driving tech would be unique and create the strongest impact. Since with the blockchain technology, the communication that comes from that goes above and beyond what all the other options could offer. In terms of memorable experiences, both an improvement in HR and driving tech would offer different but equally strong memorable experiences, with the HR focusing on how the sales team treats the guest and the driving tech creating a new and innovative way for the users to experience driving with VR. And lastly, in terms of high customer loyalty, with the pairing of the communication and memorable experience, this is where we think driving tech would create the strongest urge to have returning customers and customers who speak highly of their experience with the brand. So due to those factors, we chose driving tech as our idea, and I'll pass it on to Bree to talk about the first steps of that.
Now, we are so excited to tell you about how virtual reality can absolutely revolutionize the experience in a dealership. First, before this recommendation, it is absolutely impossible for a client to experience all models with all possible add-ons, all combinations of that in a physical car in a single dealership and take that for a test drive. We saw that simply from the fact that Paul wasn't able to drive the Taycan at his first test drive. This leaves clients feeling unsure about their decisions. What if they missed an add-on that was really important to their experience without even knowing what it would affect? So this in turn leads to potential changes in paperwork as clients go back and forth, which in turn leads to increased labor costs and room for error with the additional paperwork. Now, what we are recommending is to bring in 6 customized motion cockpit simulators, one for each model. Now, this is a 4D experience with VR and actual motion, so it feels like someone is truly driving. One of the benefits to this is that the experience can be absolutely customized. With the ability to change the feeling of the motion sensors, one can mimic the feeling with and without air suspension, with and without power steering, etc. So a client can truly experience what everything is going to feel like. This immersive experience will be through VR, so it will truly look like they're driving a car in a test drive and can customize with internal and external Porsche shells and different branding. So it truly looks like they're in a test drive. The impact here is, again, reducing the labor costs due to reducing additional amendment papers, reducing those potential for costly errors, and increasing the sales of add-on options as clients experience how those add-ons are actually going to drastically change their luxury experience. Now, how is this actually going to be implemented? The first step is going to be building on existing 3D models of Porsche cars. We know Hong Kong Porsche already does have these 3D augmented reality models, so this would simply need to be adjusted into a VR space. Next, Porsche would need to work with a software development company for the VR engine development to actually run the VR, as well as simulation modeling so that the models can react to things like turning left or right. We recommend the company Unity Technologies as they're globally renowned for simulation modeling and have recently come out with some of the top simulation modeling in Chinese video games. Next, we recommend working with hardware development companies for those motion cockpits and driving simulations. The companies we recommend here are Cubic System and Next Level Racing. These are 2 companies that are the best in the best that work with F1 driving simulations, so it actually feels like you are driving, and works with brands like Mercedes-Benz and Ford in their driving simulations. Lastly, there will be the need to fit the hardware into Porsche vehicle shells and partial interiors, as well as integrating the software and hardware so they can work together. We do have some estimated costs here, about 933,000 Hong Kong dollars for the hardware, which is those 6 motion simulators, as well as the VR sets, and integrating them into the Porsche aspects. About 510,000 Hong Kong dollars for software development, and about a variable cost of about 35,000 Hong Kong dollars per year for potential maintenance and repair. One thing we would like to point out is we do expect these costs to be significantly lower. The reason why we expect this to be lower is because we do know that Porsche is moving into the F1 sphere with a partnership with Red Bull. So they likely already have access to a lot of this technology. And if not access, then relationships that can lower those costs.
So now that we have a unique guest experience, what can be done to help improve the communication? Our idea is building a blockchain and the use of smart contracts to help make this possible. So you might be asking, what is a blockchain and how do smart contracts work? Well, essentially, it is a network of if-when statements that computers enter automatically through code when predetermined conditions are met and verified. Why is this impactful? Well, there's 3 main reasons. 1, it reduces the need for paperwork and reduces the error that comes from misfiling. 2, it provides instant updates for both the customers and the dealership sales team, so they always know what's happening with the car. And 3, it's transparent and unchangeable once entered, so all the information will be shown in steps and shown who did it. Now, where will it be viewed? It will be viewed on an online portal with the information on a private network that's only accessible to those in the dealership and the customer with unique ID. Who will use it? It will be used by the owner of the vehicle, and as well as, once again, the Porsche dealership. And how much will it cost? Well, it would need 3 developers to develop, take 6 months, and come to a total cost of an estimated 900,000 Hong Kong dollars. So how will this work and how will this look for the customer and the dealership? Well, it'll start with the customer creating an account where they will enter their information and have a wallet, which is accessible through Porsche's website. In step 2, the car will get the unique ID, and this will be as simple as using the car's VIN number, which is already created with the car, and pairing that to the blockchain ID. And then all mentions and add-ons and requests will be added to that contract. In step 3, the ownership transfer will be put into the customer's wallet so they can see all the updates and changes that are happening after they've made the down payment on the vehicle. In step 4, through the whole process of the creation and changes that happen to the car, all the updates are entered in the blockchain, allowing the customer to get instant feedback and updates of what's happening that same day, instead of the 7 days through email that Paul was waiting, as mentioned before. And in step 5, this is where the owner updates happen. And this would be after Paul or the owner of the vehicle takes ownership. All the maintenance records can also be stored through the blockchain as well, as long as they're verifiable by the dealership. So to have a quick visualizer of how this might work, think of Domino's Pizza Tracker. The customer would create an account. They would get to see the progress on how their pizza is being made. They'll get any updates along the way, and they'll get to know when it's out for delivery, and they'll let them know when the product is at their door. And this will essentially be similar to how the customer will be able to see their Porsche vehicle. Another proof of concept is that De Beers is doing this currently with their diamond industry to help streamline the process. And Deloitte interviewed 5,000 top companies and found that 38% of them are willing to invest 33 million Hong Kong dollars into this technology.
So we also want to make sure that the face and the representation of Porsche is top-notch. The first way we plan on doing this is by implementing digital checklists. So things like sending receipts to customers and checking documentation will be created in a digital checklist, and this would then be uploaded to the blockchain for the customer to see. The next thing we want to do is have quarterly training sessions to improve the knowledge and the skills of the sales executives so they always know what to do in terms of addressing customer success and concerns. The last thing we want to do is create set standards and policies. We want to have standards for how long it takes to respond to customers, for example, 2 to 5 business days, so that Paul would always be responded to in time and not have to check back with the sales executive, for instance. We'd also have policies in place for responding to customers' complaints, and that will be backed up with the training sessions. In the short term, we do think it's important to reach out to Paul, apologize, and have the head of customer support offer Paul a trade-in of his current Porsche at retail value for his original desired vehicle.
In terms of training for both for the driving forward idea, there would be 5 steps to it. So the first step would be an announcement of the change well ahead of time to make sure it doesn't come as a surprise or shock to the employees. And this would be done also by explaining the problems that Paul experienced so the employees know why this is important and impactful to have. In step 2, it would gauge the employee reactions, and if there's any resistance, find where that's coming from and see what can be done to address that. In step 3, that's when the training will begin, and you would provide training and coaching on how to use both the blockchain and the VR simulator and address any skill gaps that are found through that. In step 4, there would be practice runs before implementation to make sure it's a smooth launch. And in step 5, it would just be monitoring the change over time to ensure it has the desired outcome.
The cost that comes from our recommendations will be now split into 3 parts, as you can see on the slides. On the left, with the red boxes, it is the fixed cost, which will be included in our total startup cost. Which first on the left, we have the fixed cost for VR section and the blockchain section on the right-hand side. And on the very right-hand side, we have the variable cost, which we are planning to keep paying after our system is fully established, which comes into a total cost of around 1.8 million Hong Kong dollar, which can actually be covered by profit from selling 9 take-ons with around 60.8% of profit margin. Onto the next, we have our short-term impact. With the short-term impact, we hope to achieve that within around 1 year. And first, we have some rankings we want to share. So we want to maintain the peer ranking as the first place, stay within top 3 in SSI rankings, and get into top 5 in DSA ranking. In terms of sales and revenue, if we can do it in a whole Hong Kong region, we're expected to increase sales by 5%, which seems reasonable compared to 7% in our growth in China's region. So altogether, will be increased by around 392 million Hong Kong dollar in revenue. Onto the next one, we have our long-term vision, which is around 3 to 5 years after we started our project. So first, we want to see 30% of decrease in dealership labor cost and 20% increase in the returning customers. So we see that Porsche has around 15% returning customers right now. We would like to achieve a 20% of that 15%, so 3% in total. And that if we expand that in a lot more dealerships, that can bring us to around 235 million Hong Kong dollars increases in revenue.
In terms of the timeline, we'd start with the blockchain creation going from months 1 to 7 and using the VR system and VR hardware creation from months 3 to 6. The training will be informed, the employees will be informed of the changes in month 1. The training for VR will happen in month 5, and the training for blockchain will happen in month 6, and there'll be an assessment of performance happening in month 9. The training for the sales team will happen immediately and quarterly, as mentioned earlier, and the launch of driving tech will begin with a VR launch in month 6 and a launch of blockchain in month 9.
Now, like any plan, this one does have risks. However, we have prepared some mitigations. So the first risk is that customers are concerned with the health risks of VR. While these risks are only prominent over long terms of exposure, we would know this is a risk or a concern of our clients when there's over 15% of social media's engagements or mentions discussing this concern. The mitigation here would be installing a screen option as an alternative to the VR option. The second is that employees do not use blockchain As soon as there is a single instance of this, it will be a one-on-one training with the employee responsible and emphasize the importance. Now, both Paul and I know what it feels like to be disappointed by our dream car, and we want to make sure that Porsche never has that happen again in order to move Porsche to the top brand for customer satisfaction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, student, for your presentation. It is now time for the Q&A session. So the 15 minutes countdown starts now. Let's hear the first question from the judges. Judges, please.
I can start, guys. So look, thank you. It appears to be too good to be true. Yeah. So, and I see that you are reading. I see that, you know, it does indicate to me that perhaps you are not really confident with your plan. So if I gave you a little bit of more time, where would you spend the additional time to revalidate your proposal?
Absolutely. I would love to take this question. I would first like to start off by saying we are completely confident in our plan, especially when we did come up with the costing and find it only takes the profit of 9 take-ons to cover this cost and keep up with the increasing trends in tech of VR and blockchain. So we've found out that, and that it's something that's incredibly possible and being done worldwide by other automobile industries, specifically Ford and Mercedes-Benz. We know it's possible and we are very confident in it. If we had more time, we would love to have worked out more options and different alternatives, specifically in terms of companies and the different weighing the benefits of those. For example, for the hardware, we did have 2 options in terms of cubic systems and next level racing. While similar, they are variables. So that is one option we'd like to explore and give a more solid answer there, as well as dive more deep into the software development of VR and blockchain and give you more details there.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question from myself. In terms of the fact that there's one showroom in Hong Kong, but there's 138 in China, why are we only doing it here? And because obviously they want to have a consistent client experience. Why would they only do it in Hong Kong and not do it elsewhere?
Yeah, I could take this one. In terms of implementing something as innovative as this, we thought it'd be best to start with a trial run in this one location before scaling largely without knowing the impact it would really have. Now, with the research we've done, it does appear that the impact will be very positive. However, we don't want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars without having a trial run happen before, just to ensure our hypothesis is correct.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just a lead on question, Zach. Can you just go back to the slide with the financials? The technical financials, sorry, the engineering and the, not that one, the one earlier on. I think it was 900 for, or 800 and something. Yeah, that one there. So my question here is, if I look at the cost here, you're saying the hardware for the VR is 900,000. It's almost what, 1.5 million there, plus 900,000 for the blockchain. Go to your last slide. So that's 2.4 million. Go to your last financial slide. So there's a disconnect. You've just said it's 2.4 million, but now you're telling me the startup cost is actually 1.8 million. What did you miss?
We would have to take a bit of look at the financials here in order to see which one was missed in the summary slides. It would be the 2.4 million, you're correct. And something I would like to point out with those costs is that the main issue the main concern with scalability, in the sense in referring to your first question, would simply be the hardware. Once the blockchain and the VR software are developed, those costs would simply would be almost minuscule. So those would be a lot lower in terms of the economies of scale, and it would only be the hardware that would be considered in expanding.
Great. Can you move please to the revenue generation? There's a slide presenting the overall business case return, correct? So are you asking us to believe that 2 million investment will generate the increase in revenues by what, 400 million? Are you sure? And you just missed the point that the numbers are not correct. So
Yes, and I would like to take on these questions. I apologize, there is some calculations issues, and we've provided with the provided information, it only mentions about the whole China, the China region's profit and the sales. So from there, I assume 5% of the overall sales is from Hong Kong, which maybe not really the case. I believe it worth that much is because Hong Kong, I know, is a very modern and has a really strong economy. So my assumption is based on how popular Porsche is in Hong Kong, as well as how strong Hong Kong's economy is.
And can you just go back to the slide where you explored the various options? Can you just maybe go through again why the two options that you discounted?
Yes, I could take this question. So one of the options that we had was improving human resources. Although in the situation, it does seem like on the surface it is a people problem. If we go back to the pain points analysis that we highlighted, we see that there are other important issues, like there not being a ticket available when you entered into the store, or waiting 10 days before response, or rushing through paperwork that could be avoided through things like blockchain and VR services. So that discounted that first idea. And the other alternative we had was a new CRM system. The first criteria we had for that was communication and transparency. As much as a new CRM system would help you communicate better with customers, it doesn't provide that transparency where they can see the overall process of what is happening, where their car is moving to. So we did think that driving tech and implementing blockchain would help with that consistent transparency as you go along with steps.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I have a couple of questions. Thank you very much. That was a really good presentation. I can see that your top option is really implementing new technology, but have you looked into the sensitivity of Porsche's customers to these new technologies? As in, Paul, would it make a difference to him to have all this tech, blockchain, and for the rest of the customers, and some of them being not as savvy as others in terms of technology, does it make a great deal of difference? Does it improve their experience of Porsche to have access to smart contracts, VR modules? As in, is it directly correlated to an increase of sales to have that? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I'd love to take this question. And then, Owen, if you could add on as well, that'd be awesome. To start off, first, I wholly believe that it will affect his experience and it will benefit his experience. If Jasmine could pull up the pain point analysis again, we aren't saying that Paul is going to come into Porsche specifically because it's his high-tech dealership, but rather the high-tech will help make his experience more seamless. So starting with the very first pain point, in our recommendation, Paul would instead be able to use the motion simulator because the Taycan wasn't available, be able to experience the Taycan with and without air suspension. And for example, decide he wants air suspension right at the first step and avoid any of those issues that come with the amendment forms later on. Additionally, Paul has a lot of pain points regarding not hearing from his salesperson right away. In our world, he would be able to, or in our recommended world, he would instead be able to go onto the online portal and see the timelines for when his car would likely be finished, who has looked at his who has edited his contracts and what the situation is there, as well as have more transparency in general without having to depend on someone to provide that to him. And Owen, if you could add on, if you have anything there.
You covered the part that I was going to say perfectly. So yeah.
One last question, and I do appreciate the plan to implement a new solution. Have you thought at some point in time that that particular sales guy could be the issue, and that getting rid of that person and replacing him with someone more suitable to the job would resolve the issue?
We did take input.
Oh, you
sorry.
could go, Jasmine.
Oh, no, I can start and then you could add on to that. But we did take into consideration the issue of people, which is why we had a plan in our driving tech to address the training, to address the knowledge, and also by providing blockchain where you can actually document the processes, which David, which is the sales guy in this situation, missed a lot of those. We do see that it does solve some of the problems. Owen, if you like to add on.
Again, I think you did a good job covering that.
Okay, if no additional question from the judges, so now we will thank you all. The judges will now stay in the room to deliberate, and dear team, we will place you in the waiting room and bring you back in for the feedback section in a few minutes. So everyone else, please kindly leave the room, and we will see you later for the results announcement. Thank you.